All right, guys, back again here. More Holley stuff, more big block stuff, and we got our LS Nasty representative here. We got Forrest. What's going on?
I had to wear it for the video.
You look very formal. You look like you're about to sell me something.
I look really professional. I figured if I can't be professional, I would look professional in the video.
You definitely look professional. So
I do what I can.
Last time we were here, we were talking about Holley Terminator system for the big block Chevrolet.
Yep.
The car. Give people a quick update on the car. It's a big block. NITROUS.
Big block NITROUS, pump gas, kind of a street cruiser. It's been in my family a long time. Going from the carburetor to fuel injection to make it more user friendly and kind of update it. Maybe make it so I won't keep tearing it up as much. So, you know, last time we kind of talked about the parts that we had and the direction we were going, you know, with the car. And so I wanted to give everybody an update on kind of what I've done thus far.
So pretty much everything that you're doing to it is just what you're going to need to go from carburetor, fuel injection. You run the Holley Terminator universal system.
Yep.
What fuel pump did you go with?
I went with the Holley Dominator fuel pump. That's like the 2 fuel pumps in one in the billet case. So I've got that installed. Jason made me a bracket to hang it down in front of a factory style gas tank with a sump in it.
So still factory style gas tank?
Factory style gas tank, no fuel cell, because I wanted to be able to go to a gas station and pump gas in the car, you know, without having to raise the deck lid and this and that. And
God,
like a race car.
You're so needy, aren't you?
I mean, I just want it to look stock and fly. You know what I mean? I want to be able to be like, hey, you just got run by a bone stock 67 Camaro that, you know, my dad's had for, you know, 30 years and just kind of ragged. I mean, it's got drag lights on it. You know?
It does have drag lights, I will say, but they're so fitting for this car. Like, and they're super shiny as well. Those are shining. Those are you polish those?
Yeah, I polish those. So those are new. But if you want to run drag lights and you want them to look good, they have to be polished, like really taken off and polished about twice a year. That front one was polished at the beginning of this racing season. And you can see it's dull again now. So before I take the car out again, I have to polish.
You're calling out of work next week to polish that, aren't you?
I might. It's going to have to be polished before the car goes anywhere. I'm really embarrassed that it's not polished for this video. I should have just polished the one on this side.
I know, you weren't thinking. So, what do we got going on today? I see you got a bag over the engine, but you do have, you got a grommet on the firewall. You got, looks like a bunch of stuff run through here.
Yeah, so right now the intake manifold is at Robert Lane's out in Texas. Shout out to Fast Lane NITROUS Systems. We had the Holley manifold, we had the NOS fogger system, we sent it out to Robert. He did a beautiful job plumbing it. He's flowing it, so we'll have pounds per hour to program in the ECU so the ECU will know how much fuel to add for the dry nitrous. I'm going to show off the intake a little bit in the next video when we have it here. I think he shipped it today, so it should be here pretty soon. The valve covers are also off. I didn't find anybody who made a big block Chevrolet valve cover to mount coils to. So what we did is we ordered the billet mount from Doug Cook at Motion Raceworks.
Oh, look at that. Shameless plug to Doug Cook.
Yeah, I got to. He's my boy. He told me to put my picture on the website.
Wow, that's all it took, and you're ordering parts.
I'm all about the pictures. I don't have to win, but I want my picture everywhere.
Look at this.
I buy one at every race.
God, you have my year's salary in photos.
I just like them, man. It's the memory. You won't ever remember that race, but the picture, you know.
I hear you.
Especially if you don't win.
So you're hanging the coil packs off the valve covers, so it'll be simple.
Yeah, it'll be simple. Jason's going to weld some bungs on the valve covers, so those will mount up nice. And then, of course, we're going to powder coat them back Chevrolet orange, so it looks like a stock, you know, option from back in the day. But we're waiting on the manifold, and so I've been working on like the main chassis wiring on the car, the hot and the ground, and I was going to talk a little bit about the way that I did that and kind of where I got the ideas from. Devin has a really good video about your main power and ground to the ECU, but this wiring job, when you look at it and you get all the parts out, it can kind of be overwhelming because there's so many parts and pieces, and you're thinking, where do I start? And so the way that I read and everybody told me to start is you get all your hardware mounted, get all your sensors mounted, get the ECU mounted, fuel pump mounted, and kind of start there before you start with any wiring and plumbing. So basically where we are right now with the cars, we've got the grommet and we've got, you know, where the main harness will be routed. Obviously I'll take it in and out a couple more times. We got the battery cables run from front to back. I'm going to talk about how we redid some of that stuff and just kind of made it a little bit cleaner and easier to work on. We got the fuel pump mounted, and so like the next thing was the big chassis grounds. We started at the back of the car. This car had the typical 2 big pole kill switch on it. These are great, but I found a car with an alternator, you can turn this off many times and the car will continue running.
That is correct.
And
wait, how do you know this?
Because I tried, and my car continued running. And I was like, that is not good.
Were you at the track trying to show off, and you're like, let me just flip this, and it kept running?
There was something going on, and I was at home, and I was like, God, I got to shut it off real quick. And I walked around there to the back and hit the switch, and the car kept on running like I hadn't done anything else. And evidently, when you do that, the way it back feeds or something, that's really bad for it. So, if you have a street car with an alternator, the most desirable and easiest way to do it without getting creative on your wiring is a 4-pole kill switch. Moroso makes those. I think it's part number like 71408 or something like that. We got that mounted in the back of the car, and that way you have a stud, that your alternator goes to, a stud your battery goes to, and then one that feeds the whole car. So when you click it off, it isolates the alternator from the battery and the battery and alternator, from the car, and will actually cut the car off. But starting at the back, the way Devin does a lot of these wiring jobs, we run the 4-gauge welding cable. And people say and think that that's really small, and that's true, but it's all about the quality of the cable that you're running. And you can see this cable has really small, fine strands in it.
Hold on, I'm focusing. Hold on. Pause.
So you can see there's a ton of strands in this wire. So if you get quality welding wire and you put the ends on properly, you see people put these ends on all kinds of different ways. There's the solder pellets and that kind of thing. And then I've even seen people like drill a hole in it and then force the wire in there and then like run some MIG welding wire down in there to melt it all together. And I don't know if that works or not, but that's not the ideal way to do it. So I bought this handy dandy hydraulic crimper from Amazon for like 20 bucks.
Wow, I was gonna say that thing looks pretty heavy duty.
It's pretty serious. You put it up in the vise, put your thing in there, push it in really tight, and then you get a good crimp every time that's the same. So if you're like me and your hands aren't super duper strong, you don't have to crimp on your battery cables by hand, because that just seems a bit ridiculous. So anyway, I did that. Basically, on this car, we have a hot cable running from the back at the battery to a lug on the firewall. And we installed these bungs on the firewall. There's a hot and a ground. So the cable comes from the back to this hot. This one will go to the alternator. This one will go to the starter. And then you have a nice place to pull power on the firewall. Now, on a stock 67 Camaro, there's a bus bar on the passenger side that feeds the entire inside of the car. So we ran a separate cable down the car to this stud, which feeds that bus bar. That way the two systems are kind of isolated from each other, and I'll be able to pull power, for the ECU and for the Holley stuff over here, and it won't be all tied in with all the factory stuff over there, because I'm rewiring a lot of the car, but I really didn't want to mess with that side of the car, because I'm kind of on a timeline to get it back going. So there's those two wires, and then there's a ground. The battery is grounded to the chassis in the back, and then it's grounded to this stud here, and this stud will go to the engine. There's an auxiliary ground from the engine to the frame. Grounds are the most important wires in the car, so everybody says. And this way you don't have things randomly, with a sheet metal screw.
That's like the way I would do it. It's just like ground, self tapper.
Right, and that's exactly how this car was done. The MSD box was mounted in the floor under the passenger seat, and there was a self tapping screw shot into a plate in the floor, and that was how the ignition was grounded previously.
You didn't know I wired this car, did you?
You must have, because it looked like it had just been many years of things added on, and just kind of nobody really paying attention. So I'm sure it had all kinds of ground loop issues and stuff. And this car had all kinds of trouble starting. You hit the key, and like I say, that was one of the reasons for going fuel injection too. I'll be able to tune all that stuff and get that a little better. So anyway, we're gonna get the main grounds and hots done, and then I'm gonna start doing some plumbing. I use the Earl's Ultra Pro hose. People use all kinds of different stuff, and it's one of those things where you get what you pay for. And I hate to plug Earl's, but so much, but it seems ridiculous to me to be putting a hose on a car this day and time that's got rubber in the middle, and then the rubber eats away and it clogs up fuel filters, or it fills up your injector or whatever. I had another street car I have that had a a braided black hose like this, and the car just stunk in the garage. I switched to Ultra Pro, all that got better. This is the Teflon line. It resists methanol, so if you want to run E85, any of that
it's really good for like all fuels.
It's good for all fuels.
And you're gonna be running pump gas through it, right? Maybe a little race gas.
A little race gas. I only want to run the cow. Just, But the other reason I like this stuff is I don't know how to do anything, and this is super duper easy to assemble. So the tubing is corrugated, right? You open up one of these fittings, and this is like baby stuff, but you slide this end on over the black braid. This is an olive. Since the tubing's corrugated, you basically just screw it down until your hose is flush with your olive, and then push this in, slide it up, and you're done.
Wow.
So there's no like complicated figuring out, stripping back the braided stuff and like blooding up your hands. And then of course I don't trust myself, so I thought this was really neat. They make a pressure testing kit, and so you screw this in each end and block the hose off, and then use your air compressor and apply pressure to it to know if it's going to leak.
That is pretty good.
Yeah.
That's all Earl stuff?
That's all Earl stuff.
God, I need to order all of that, because I can't.
I had to, man, because then I'm like, I know, if the Terminator X runs at 43 pounds, if I apply 200 to it with my air compressor, I don't have to worry about it leaking. Because, I mean, you're going to skimp on your fuel hose, and that's what's going to set you on fire. That just kind of seems ridiculous. So, Earl's, you buy it once, you cry once, and then it's over with. You don't have to buy fuel hose anymore. So, that's kind of that. We started on the plumbing. I've plumbed from the tank to the pump, and I'm waiting on the intake to get here to kind of finish that up.
Because you got, with that intake, you got fuel rails and everything, right?
I got fuel rails and everything. I'm going to mount the fuel pressure regulator. I think I'm going to mount it right on the fuel rail. And just kind of come in and then have my return out there. And these fuel pressure regulators are neat because you can screw your sensor right in there.
Wow, so you're ready to go.
Yeah, you're ready to go. And the other thing is you kind of get all that stuff mounted before you start on your wiring, and you don't end up hacking up the harness and making it a potential failure. So anyway, that's that stuff. The fuel pump wiring. So
do we need to get under the car? Do you need to show any of this?
We need to get under the car and see how the fuel pump's mounted. But before we do that, let's talk about wiring. That fuel pump we talked about, it has two different sides in it, so you can activate them both at the same time and pump a ton of volume of fuel all the time. Be great for a race car, but in a street car you're going to be driving around. You really don't want to pump the fuel from back to front over and over again and heat it. So I'm going to use two separate relays, and your green wire off your fuel injection system will turn on one side for the car to drive around. And then when you flip the toggle switch for the nitrous, it'll activate the other side of the fuel pump. You see people do sheet metal screws everywhere and mount a bunch of relays, and I don't like that. I try to keep stuff really neat. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this in here, but I bought a dual relay board from Leash Electronics. I don't know if you can get around there and see that, which is really, really cool. So you have one hot going in, and then you have your signals to it, and it's all on one thing. It comes with the relays, it comes with fuses, it's got LED lights to let you know, when the fuses pop whatsoever. So I thought that was really neat. And you buy the relays, and I mean, one of those relay kits is like $100, and the Leash thing's like $70 for a dual relay. So
you're good to go.
Savings. Because we're saving money on this project. This is supposed to be the budget project. The next thing I want to talk about was just the Terminator X. I really haven't gotten deep into the wiring of the Terminator X yet, but I learned a few things both at PRI and then watching some videos that were really neat, and I didn't know. I was going to show the harness in here. So Holley really did a good job thinking about the end user and the racer when they made these new Terminator X harnesses. You can see we mounted the ECU here, that way it'll flip up and away, just kind of like my other car. And it's, excuse, it's a little dirty in here, but I'm trying to figure out.
It's a little dirty. You're working on it.
I'm working on it. Oh, and check this out. You put that sleeve on there, and I made this neat harness. See, never done any wiring in my life, but you order that stuff. That's an Earl's thing too, that covers the three wires, and I run them together.
Was it just like some wire loom?
Yeah, it looks neat though. You know what I mean?
How many times have you been calling Devin? Have you been calling Devin a lot?
Oh, I call him like 3 or 4 times a day. My goal is for him to hate his life. I want him to be completely miserable and not be able to do his job because he's answering my questions. but it's really not been all that bad.
So the whole concept of this, not only the product from Holley, but the video series, is to show that like you are not a professional race car builder, wire, or anything. You don't do that.
I don't know anything about anything. 2 years ago, I could barely strap down my own car in a trailer. I don't know much about wiring, and I'm showing that you can kind of learn this as you go along and still do a good job. I really haven't run into a lot of snags at all on this, because they've thought about a lot of stuff to make this just a plug-and-play deal. Like, what I thought was really neat is, when you talk about wiring your auxiliary sensors, an auxiliary sensor has a 5-volt, power out to it, a 5-volt ground, and then it sends back a signal that's the proportion of the 5 volts. So 3 wires go to the sensor. The harness is really neat and makes it user-friendly for your sensor ads and stuff. They put this power tap that provides a 5-volt output for the sensor, a ground, a 12-volt, and then another ground. So instead of having to cut into this harness or come back to pins on the ECU, you can just grab those from right there on the harness, which I thought was great, because I don't know how to pin and unpin things from the ECU, and I was like, shoot, I can just take it right there and plug in. Which, it may not be a big deal to other people, but it is to me. As far as wiring up a Terminator X to get the car to run, you see all these wires. Everything out there has an end on it and plugs in pretty much.
Yeah.
So here, you have a 12 volt, you have your wire out to your fuel pump, you have this wire that's your 12 volt trigger, like your switch. And that's pretty much it. Your ignition stuff plugs in. Depending on what you have, you need the right plug or adapter, but there's not a lot of wires here to actually be terminated. So I thought that was really neat. Also, you got your CAN bus connector here. The Terminator X does not have a USB port on it. And so the way that you access that and get on the computer and tune it like you would a Dominator or an HP is they make a little dongle that plugs into the CAN bus here and then plugs right into your computer. So that's going to be super simple. I'm just going to hook it up right there and then have the cable routed somewhere under the carpet so I can pull it out when I'm ready to tune on the car. The other thing is, you see a lot of questions online about the inputs and outputs on the Terminator, and it has 4. But a lot of times people don't take into account, if you're getting a race pack, you got to use a channel and buy a sensor or use one of your channels for your oil pressure and your water temperature and your wideband. All that stuff's included in your Terminator X harness. So it's for additional on top of whatever you need to run the vehicle. Exactly. So, we're going to have nitrous pressure. We're going to have a drive shaft speed. I'm going to have pan vacuum, because I think that's one of the most important sensors you can put on a nitrous car, because it lets you know when you blew it up. And you don't have to call somebody and be like, hey man, do you think I blew it up? You're like, oh, I can look at the computer and I know I blew it up. It's done, So I thought that was really neat. I also got the solid state drivers here that are going to run. I'm going to use one of those for the trans brake and then one of them for the nitrous system. It's got built-in progressive controller, so you don't need something separate for that. That's really simple to wire. You hook to a hot, you hook to the ECU, which I'll hook it right there, and then you hook it to your nitrous solenoid. So it's really kind of dummy-proof, because I can do it. Now let me ask you this: you got the new screen, right? What is it? The 6186-.
Is that like the Cat's Meow? That's the Hot Boy one.
It is. And I've been reading about how to wire it, and it's something else that I was approaching like, am I going to be able to do this myself? I'm going to need to call Devin, etc., etc. Well,
for everyone that doesn't know who Devin is, give everyone a backstory with Devin.
So Devin is like the Holley EFI guru.
He has a YouTube channel. He does videos to teach people how to do this.
They are tech videos. They're not really entertainment videos. They're tech videos, but they're great. If you want to learn anything about Holley EFI, you should check him out. He does the tuning on this car.
He wired this car, right?
Wired and plumbed that car. Basically does everything electronically with that car to make it run. And I'm trying to learn. That was one of the reasons for going to the fuel injection on this car too. I can kind of learn on that car and then apply it to my race car. But I was worried about wiring this dash, so I broke it out. And you look at the back of it. There's one main harness that plugs into it there. I'm like, oh, there's going to be a bunch of stuff to hook to the ECU and this and that. Nope. Plug this in the back of it. Plug this in your CAN bus. And you give it a hot in the ground.
And that's it.
That's it. I mean, it's stupid. It's so easy, you know, and then you can read anything from the ECU on this dash. So it's like, why would you wire up gauges and this and that when you can do it all with just plugging that in?
And this is their new dash. I mean, look how that looks. Not that the other one didn't look nice, but this one is super classy.
It is, and it has a lot higher resolution.
And it's still a touchscreen, and it's got like a RPM gauge deal.
It does. So I'm really excited about this because that car had a few gauges in it, and I think gauges hanging everywhere are kind of tacky. So it's like you just put this in there, and then you don't need anything else in the car. I mean, it takes the place of all that stuff. So that's that. It comes with everything to mount it. There's a Motion Raceworks is just today, I think, released a column mount for this, and I've messaged and asked could they make one for a stock column.
Because everyone wants to put their Holley on their stock column.
Right. Well, I wanted them to stop everything they were doing and build a part specifically for me. You know what I mean? Just to see if they would. I don't know. We'll see. Back to wiring the sensors too. You know, we were talking about the 3 wires that go to it. You can get wires and make your own and put them in a loom and all that, or you can just order this from Jegs, Summit, anywhere. It's a Holley cable. It's got 3 conductors in it, so you just bring it to the sensor, terminate it at the end, and then go back to your ECU, and you don't have to heat shrink this and heat shrink that, and it makes it all super neat and easy. For me, that was a no-brainer.
Simplicity.
Like, it keeps me from having to wire something. You just buy this and kind of hook it up.
All right, so here we are underneath the car.
We got a lot of street car stuff under here.
Look at that. Is that TRZ NRO bar?
It is a TRZ.
Is that the big one?
It is, because it's a big girl. You know, she's 3,700 pounds. She needs all the big stuff.
I'm so jealous. Look at that TRZ NRO bar.
Don't judge my LED light strip. It's not fastened here yet, but this is for Jason, because we don't want Jason to have a flashlight or his phone or anything. We'll just be able to click a button and turn on LED lights for him to adjust the shocks. That's another Devin thing. Those are really neat. They are, I think they're for like a truck bed. You can get them on Amazon.
Wow.
They're super simple,
I want them so I could drive down track with them on.
Well, I wasn't really going for the underglow look. But, my dad, that was the first thing he said when I told him I was putting that on there. He's like, oh, that's terrible. Anyway, Jason built a bracket for the fuel pump. You see we have the 100 micron pre-pump, and then we have our pump, and the 10 micron post-pump. Wiring for that super simple. You got 4 wires, hot and ground, and then a signal for turning on each side of the pump. So, like I talked about, we'll activate one side with the NITROUS and then the other just to drive around. But ignore how dirty it is under here. I guess I should have cleaned some.
Unbelievable.
There's a lot of street car stuff under here, that gets dirty when you actually drive the car.
Just so everyone at home knows, this is what I'm dealing with right now. This is
Charles wanted to be. He wanted to be in the video.
This is part of filming over here in your garage.
Charles wanted to be in the video. He said he wanted to be a movie star. You know what I mean?
So you about got everything all wired up, and the fuel pump stuff looks super simple.
It's super simple. I'm gonna hook those wires up tomorrow. I'm waiting on a few more connectors. I've been trying to use all TXL wire and quality connections. None of the like Advanced Auto. With the shrink stuff already on them.
Wow.
Kind of thing.
You're just flaming my wiring jobs. Everything I do.
I wanted it to look professional, I wanted to be able to like, man, I wired my street car better than Devin wired my race car. But I don't know how well he'll take that. But anyway, that's so kind of the next step will be we'll get the intake manifold in. We'll get it mounted. We're going to get the distributor set in. And then I'll be able to start wiring the Terminator X. So in the next video, I'm going to go through actually hooking up all the sensors, and then we may see if we can make it run.
Wow. Well, this is
if we turn the main switch on and it all catches fire, we'll edit that part out of the video.
Fuel everywhere.
Fuel everywhere.
You pressure tested. You're good.
You got to hook them all up right there. You know what I mean?
Well, it looks good. I've actually never been... So is this a new tank?
This is a new tank. This is from Glenn's Performance. In the past, I had one of those sleeper tanks where the outlets were over here so it would look completely stock. But he only rates those up to 1,000 horsepower, and I was like, that's not nearly enough to outrun the cow.
Wow.
So I ordered the one with the sump in the back, and he says this actually provides really good fuel control like a fuel cell would. The pump's actually supposed to be mounted below the level of the fuel, but I tucked it up there. I'm going to see if I have problems with it or not. So that'll be one of those real-world tests of do you have to do that. I can drop it down more if I want to, but I wanted it to look, stock up under here.
God, you're all about just getting someone. Now everyone's going to watch these videos and they're going to know. There's that Pro Mod that looks like a normal car.
No, I mean, it's 3,700 pounds. I need all the help I can get.
You can't even
Look
say
at all
that.
that full exhaust up there, you know?
Full exhaust dumps before the axle.
Jason's supposed to be putting tailpipes on it. Shout out to BPF. Come put my tailpipes on so I don't have to hear that drama. That's going to get me to brake when I have tailpipes.
Oh my God.
It's going to be like a combo of Silver Surfer and Bowser, but different.
Wow. You just got the best of everything, huh?
I don't know about that. We'll see. We'll see. Just slower.
All right, y'all. Just wrapping up this video. Just a little update. We are going to go back over to Forrest's house once he gets his intake manifold back and gets everything all plugged up. We're going to go through firing up Terminator, kind of programming it. There's a couple of buttons you got to hit before you fire it up, but it's super simple. We run the Terminator stuff on a lot of our cars. We've wired up 3 already. They're awesome. You really can't beat the Holley stuff. Makes it so simple and easy to use. And I mean, if I can do it, if I can wire up a car, anyone at home can wire up a car. Forrest is going to come up and we're going to wire up the Holley HP for the Discount Dragon here soon. But I hope you guys enjoy checking out what's going on with his build, because that car is awesome. Now they do offer the Terminator for Holley on pretty much engine application now. They got like the new Gen 3 Hemi, they got Fox Body Terminator, they got Universal, so they got a bunch. And go and get your Terminator. So thank you guys for watching. Comment, subscribe. We'll see you guys in tomorrow's upload.